At this point, we're at the position where the grievance committee has met on a grievance. And Dr. Kyle Scott is going to present the findings of the grievance committee. Dr. Scott.
Yeah, so I was on the grievance committee with, it was myself, Ron Trowbridge, Dave Holsey. Having reviewed the file, which we all have copies of, we were not able to identify any procedural irregularities or policy violations, and therefore do not recommend that it be referred to the entire board for consideration.
Holton, can I say something about this?
Well, just a minute. Let us finish this first because we have to get a motion and then a vote
right.
on the motion. Okay. You've heard the report from the grievance committee. Can we, I'd like to have at this point, have a motion to adopt the grievance committee's recommendation.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second that we accept the grievance committee report. We're going to vote by roll call. Art Murillo.
Aye.
Linda Good.
Aye.
Aye.
Cal.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay. The committee's report has been adopted. Thank you guys for a job well done. Yes. Oh, well, I always thought that I only voted to break ties, but I will vote. The vote is aye. So thank you for correcting me. Okay. Okay, got you. Dr. Trowbridge, I understand that you have some comments to.
Yeah, I want to say something here. We've now unanimously voted not to send a grievance forward to the board. We don't do those things lightly because we're dealing with a human being. And when we do that, we are aware of that. But I want to give you a very short context for all this and how this all started, that we got into a position like this. Right after Kyle and I came on board almost 4 years ago during the Carpenter administration, we saw that the grievance policy was a disaster. It was a kangaroo court. It was not possible, really, for an employee to get a fair shake. It just was not. And at the time, I could not believe how poorly drawn that policy was. So Kyle and I said, we've got to do something about this. Then, it was 3 years ago, so he and I started to write it. We weren't lawyers. We didn't know what we were doing, but that didn't stop us. We started to write a policy statement, a grievance policy statement. He wrote a draft, I wrote a draft, he wrote a draft. We kept writing these drafts back and forth. We thought they were brilliant. They weren't. Later on, Dave Holsey, who was the chairman, entered into it, but we didn't get anywhere. Then when Linda became board chair, she joined us intensely in drafting the new grievance policy. She was extremely active in it. She had the legal mind, and that was quite helpful. So the three of us spent a lot of time on this thing, and then we had revision after revision after revision. It went on forever. We would throw the copy on the wall, blow it up, and we would study every word to make sure that every word was the right word, because once it's out there, we knew that the critics would find the bad words right away. So we were paranoid about the process of designing this. And I want to say this, what was in the policy is what we wanted. The draft did not control us. We controlled the draft. And then after hours and hours and hours, weeks, months of drafting, then it was sent out for eyes to see. We weren't about unilaterally to say, well, that's it. We've designed it. It's all over. It was sent out to everybody. The chancellor sent it to the cabinet. It was sent to the faculty senates. It was sent to the AFT. We sent it to everybody we could think of to look at and then advise us if there was a problem. And finally, we got back a consensus. Finally, it went everywhere, and everybody looked at it, and we had a final product. And the thing that I liked about it was that at the very beginning, we tried to have grievances resolved somewhat casually and informally. But if that couldn't happen, then it could ratchet up the ladder, and there were processes and timelines and things like that. And there would be, on any grievance, 5 different judges. And the last 2 judges were as follows. The penultimate judge was Mario, and the final judge was Steve. Now, I'm going to say this very bluntly. You are not going to find better guys anywhere than those 2 guys. Not only intellectually, how bright they are, but also in terms of how fair they are. Both of them are fair. I have seen stuff that Mario's written to somebody going way overboard, I think, to be nice. But he did. They're moral. They're bosses, but they have a heart. And I've seen that in both of them. So then finally, they arrive at some decision. I think that they have done it fairly. But they also have the honesty and the courage to make a hard decision. And that's what their jobs entail. They got to be nice guys, but they've also got to be bosses when they have to be bosses. So this grievance has gone through that. This grievance now that we talk about in front of us now has gone through that. I think our system is extremely fair. And so I am satisfied with the position that we have taken on that.
Thank you, Dr. Stourbridge. Okay, at this point, we need to approve the minutes of our February 24th Board of Trustees retreat that was held again on February 24th. Do we have a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, vote by the usual sign.
Aye.
Any opposed? Similarly, our regular board meeting was on March 2nd, 2017. I need a motion to adopt those particular minutes. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second. Okay. It's been moved and properly second that we adopt the minutes of the March 2nd, 2017 board meeting. All those in favor, vote by the usual sign.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. At this point, we have special reports and announcements. Mr. Chancellor.
Yeah, I have 2 or 3 quick introductions, then a presentation and a discussion, but I would like to recognize Kelly Schaffler, or welcome. Where's Kelly? Right there in the back. She's with the Houston Chronicle, right? Welcome. And I would also like to thank Patrick Barton. Is this your last meeting? Patrick's been the Faculty Senate President over at Sci-Fair. So I don't know whether, are you going to be happy, or are you going to miss us, or?
You're welcome to come back anytime you'd like.
And also, I want to recognize Karen Hutchins. Karen she's still around. She'll be going south and working for HCC. But Karen, I want to make sure we recognize Karen. Karen's been working here since 2002, 3. So, and Karen has, worked very, very hard. Karen's a really decent human being. Works, been holding the finance office together. So thank you very much for your contribution, for both of you, for your contribution. So, okay, thanks. Okay. What I want to talk about next is pathways, just for a minute, and the Board of Trustees Institute. And I'm really kind of This is half mine, half Dr. Trowbridge and Dr. Smith and Helen Clougherty and I went to the Board of Trustees Institute, which is required from one of the grants that we had. And this was about pathways, and we've talked about pathways before. I'm going to explain just a few things, and a special thanks to Jamie Posey, who put all of our information together. Our board was the best prepared. They sent us a list of questions that we were going to be discussing, and Jamie went home on short notice, and we had all the answers.
Can Jamie Posey, is she here?
Yeah,
Jamie,
up. Stand up so they know who you are, because we were throwing your name around, but...
I want to echo what Dr. Head said, that we looked like superstars, and all of the other board members had to hustle at the last minute to get all those questions answered, and we just sat back and laughed at them.
You know, if I said to you what Steve said, you could bribe him. I mean, things he said about you. I mean, they're unreal.
So I wanted to point out a couple of things. So there were 12 or 13 schools there, and we're part of a statewide movement. It's actually part of a nationwide movement, but I'm going to talk to you just for a second about what all this is and point out some of the shortcomings that we have. We tell you all the good things we're doing, but I'm going to tell you where we need to do some work also. And John, I'm not sure which one of these. That's got it right there. So these are some of the things we were talking about at the Board of Trustees Institute. And again, we're going to show you what we do and what we don't do. Keep in mind, this is about student success. And we've worked very hard over the last decade or longer than that about student success. So we still have some work to do. And I've got about 5 of these slides I'm going to show you. So, of all the people that apply, 52% of them actually show up. And we have 9,700 first time in college. FTIC is first time in college. So there's still a lot of people out there that are interested in us who do not come here. And we're working on all this. Alicia Harvey Smith, Dr. Smith over there Dr. Harvey Smith has put together a strategic enrollment management group across the system. And how many, we've got a couple hundred people involved in that, or 64, or something, like a lot. Okay. So she'll come back in and give an update on that because it's really good stuff, and we're very focused on getting students in here. But you need to take a look at some of this. So 15% of the students who enroll have no credits in the semester. 15%. And you can see down here.
Do we know why?
Yes. We could spend a lot of, I've got all the background, which I'd be glad to send you. Jamie prepared all the background also. Several people did. Do you want to go in that tonight, or you want us to come back and give you a report? Okay, yeah, okay. We have all of that. I just did not include it in here because I asked the same question as we were sitting in the meeting. So these are everybody is supposed to participate in orientation. And I'm looking at the faculty senate presidents because this is what we talked about today. So we do all these good things, and we still have 18% of our FTIC, which is, well, you can see it right there. So we're following up to see exactly what's going on there. Mm-hmm. Everybody is supposed to, well, nearly everybody is supposed to be in the student success class, which we've mandated. So there were 3 pieces that we thought were really important for our students. Everybody comes to orientation. Everybody enrolls in the student success course. And I'll show you another one. Everybody is supposed to have an educational plan. And this is really about getting at the root of pathways. So we want to be more intrusive in our advising, make sure that people fill out a plan. There's reasons for all of this, and we'll come back and give you some updates as we get into this and talk about it, but I wanted you to show you the good and the bad here. And this is, you just need to take a look at this so you can see some of the work we need to be doing. I always think that the students have to do 51% of the work. We can get them up there, but and help them and provide help getting in. We can do the pathways. We can lay out. We've got a couple of different issues. The average student when they transfer takes about 97 hours. 97 hours for transfer. So the average time, Jamie, is 4.67 years. To get a certificate or a degree? What is the? Yeah. So we've got our work cut out for us. That's for sure. And let me show this other thing, John. If you could tell me where it is, I'll. This is very quick.
Is that 97 hours attempted or 97 hours completed or?
They're transferring, Jamie, with.
Okay. Okay.
I'm not going to go in a lot of detail on this, but this is what we talked about at the sorry, at the meeting. So, and if you presidents disagree with this, you can talk to Jamie because she filled this chart out. We just used this chart. I'm just telling you right now. So, we had, but I had looked at it myself. I mean, this is what we're doing and what's in process and what we're not doing. But I wanted the rest of the board to see what it is we're working on and how comprehensive this is. It's not an easy issue for us to deal with, and it takes a lot of work, especially in a large system like this. All colleges and all of our locations have to focus on this. This is why we're here. It's about student success. So you can see, again, let me just go to the second page so you can get a look on this. Whoops. Okay. So we've got a plan. We just need to follow up on the plan. We need to follow up and do, we've got more advisors in the budget next year. We've got more faculty. The two are all related. We've got tutors. We've got mentors. We're trying a lot of different things. Lone Star is one of the leaders in the country over all this, but we still have work to do. And if you, Dr. Trowbridge or Dr. Smith, if you have anything to add to that, it's.
Laura, I just have one point that the instructors drove home was that you need to measure what's important to you. And as most of you probably recall, before I became a board member, I taught Education 1300, at a couple of the colleges. And I was shocked that we only had 12% of our students taking that class filled out education plans and put them in the computer. Because when we were doing it, we were told in order to get paid, all of our kids had to do an education plan because that was the way that we could speed up the graduation process for those kids rather than taking classes hocus pocus. And I told the chancellor that 12% has to be a typo because I have not seen a policy change whereby those students do not have to complete, that particular part of the Education 1300 class. And so, again, Dr. Head committed and everybody committed that we're going to make sure, that happens, and we are going to have periodic ways of reporting out whether we're actually living up to what we plan to do. And I too, I'm impressed with Lone Star compared to what I hear from the other community colleges. Even though we're doing better, we want to be the best of the best and follow through on what we commit to. Otherwise, we decommit. Dr. Trowbridge?
Okay. Thanks, John.
President Boyd.
Okay, Dr. Nutt, are you ready?
I'm ready. Are you ready?
Are we ready? Okay, go ahead.
I don't want to rush you.
Well, we weren't. I just want to make sure we recognize you.
Thank you. Chairman Smith, Chancellor Head, and members of the board, my presentation tonight is actually great to follow up what we just heard. Tonight I'm talking about student learning, but from a broad perspective. In every board meeting, we always talk about and see evidence of what our students learn and how Lone Star College is committed to that. But tonight I want to highlight the architecture and structures that are in place at our college to make sure we create those conditions for learning and that we measure what we're learning. So I'm going to start with a very, very brief video. So from that video, you can see how throughout our strategic initiatives, our mission, everything we do is focused on student learning. So the Aspen Institute's been mentioned, and we know from them that excellent community colleges demonstrate strength across these 4 domains, learning completion, labor market outcomes, and equity. And actually last month, President Keshvala presented on equity, and prior to that, President Pearson presented information on our graduates, which tied to labor market outcomes and completion as well. Excellent community colleges work hard to improve teaching and learning and engaging faculty in that process of measuring learning. And we are also driven by the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools Commission on Colleges. You'll see here that student learning is a fundamental core requirement for our accreditation. That's part of that scaffolding that's in place to keep us focused on student learning. SACS also wants us to measure student learning outcomes. And this is also, in their comprehensive standards, a requirement for us to continue to receive our accreditation. The Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board is also part of the structure. They have 2 inventories from which we gather our courses for state funding, but this isn't just a catalog of course titles. Our student learning outcomes are driven by what are in these inventories, and we have the opportunity to add to those outcomes, but we can't take away from what's listed in these inventories here. So we have 70 curriculum teams who are helping us manage this process of measuring our student learning outcomes. And then each college's Educational Program Council also reviews recommendations. And so you can see from this visual that this ownership of measurement of learning outcomes is widespread throughout the college. Through our institutional effectiveness process is how we meet the SACS requirements through this step-by-step here, planning and assessing, submitting. We really want to track how we are measuring our student learning, and each and every individual college in our system has a laser beam focused on these. We are measuring, as you've heard, some of our data tonight from what Dr. Head just presented, but key performance indicators. These are just samples that I pulled out related more indirectly to student learning, but again, we are all very much focused on these outcomes and making sure we're headed in the right direction. Here's just one example. This is very current data that shows overall successful completion and how that number is increasing over time. This was from an AIR report that we're using on tracking our KPIs. So that I hope is evidence that we are measuring student learning. We have structures and scaffolding and architecture in place to make sure that we're always looking at that and improving. So on behalf of my colleagues, we want the board to know we're all dedicated to the purpose of transforming potential into achievement, not just for our students, but for our college as well. So, any questions?
Fine job.
Thank you.
Very good.
Good evening, Chairman Smith and Dr. Head and trustees. I want to do a little bit of focused storytelling first. For those of you we have 6 cultural beliefs, and one of them is better together, sharing knowledge and encouraging collaboration to reach our common goals. So last fall, in October, I did a presentation about really anxiety and how that affected student learning in class. So I want you to know that right after the meeting, John King came up to me. He is our executive director for digital services and web development. Is he here? Thank you. Give a wave. You helped a lot. He's handed me his card, and he said, I can help make our community services better available and accessible to the community and to our students. So, and then a couple of more people said, I can help with that too. So Linda Good said, through Lone Star Legal Aid, we have a lot of those resources. I'd be happy to send them to you, and she did. Our Psi Beta students took those resources and made sure they were all current and that everything worked. Art Murillo said, if we can help with transportation, if Metro can help us, let me know. So our faculty senate presidents each contacted one of their counselors at the colleges who sent resources to John also. And they've been working on pulling this together and making it easier to get to. So this was really an entire system-wide effort to make that happen, and it really happened very quickly. So that's what Better Together looks like to me. Thank you all. I'll have the link here if you just want to look at it. It's very extensive. We actually have more resources and are looking at a way to kind of add those in addition, but we didn't want to overwhelm. So you can go to individual campuses, but there are tons of links here for each type of food assistance and housing assistance and legal assistance from the website. And I think you get here, and I believe it's just 2 clicks. So thank you very much for updating that. I read some of those problems haven't gone away, though. Just a few weeks ago, the Wisconsin Hope Lab and the Association of Community College Trustees released a report called Hungry and Homeless in College. They surveyed 33,000 students in 70 community colleges in 24 states. And their previous report in 2015 reported that about half of community college students experienced food insecurity, and they're defining that as limited or uncertain availability of nutritionally adequate food. So what they decided to do, though, was for the this report that came out in 2017, last fall, they went back and they surveyed the students earlier because they didn't get as many responses. So they have many more responses. What they were finding is that students who face these issues, they drop out. And so they surveyed them very early in the semester and found that it's actually 2/3 of students now experience food insecurity, and that 33% are regularly hungry. So, and the housing insecurity and homelessness remained constant. It's not getting worse, but it's still not, that's not acceptable. So, in addition to kind of those basic physical needs, though, there's still the mental and health needs of students at our colleges. Our college hosted a fair during Health and Wellness Week. One of the days was dedicated to this. And what they did, they were educating students about suicide prevention and depression, things to look for, anxiety. And they also asked them to share secrets. And so it's interesting. All they did was put up sticky notes or index cards, and I put one of them here. I don't want my sister to go to college because then my mom will be left alone with my dad, who's hit her many times before. So what they compiled these. They had follow-up things that they did with this. Students also identified people at the college that they felt they could go to, and contacted the professors afterwards. In addition to the secrets, though, there were a big canvas with words of encouragement as well. One of them, I don't think batter is a word, but it said mind over matter makes you a little batter. That was one of them. One of my favorites that's on the canvas, you can't read it, is say I am perfect and repeat it over and over. Another one was the more things you get through, the easier it gets, and obstacles are steps to happiness. And one of my favorites is just graduate. So something really unusual happened last week too. I know we're growing our online programs. More and more students are taking online classes. But what happened was that, and I don't think it's happened before, we haven't been able to document that, an online advisor there was a chat. Somebody asked for this. The student didn't want advice on enrolling. They wanted to talk because they'd just broken up with their boyfriend and were having a really hard time. So in addition to figuring out how to provide all these support services in a face-to-face situation, we have to think about how to provide those online as well. So all colleges are facing this challenge. It's not just us. And no single one has found the answer. Some of the things that I guess I didn't put that slide in. Okay. All of the, Cuyahoga has added public benefit services to their financial aid office. A college in Boston is providing low-income students one good meal a day at a cost of about $7 a meal. They're doing that for about 100 students now, and I think they're using community resources to do that. Amarillo's partnering with universities to have sociologists on their colleges. And Lone Star does a number of things. We have, you've seen, we have food pantries, we have counselors, we have the foundation supply some funds. Thank you, Chancellor Head, for student emergencies. So nationally, our trend is to hire more counselors, but very diverse groups of counselors to meet the needs of student populations. So students also have to be included in the solution to this. What they found was that in certain areas, certain groups of students didn't want help in some of these areas. So I think they retraining a group of men who were had lost their jobs and they were coming back for retraining. They didn't want to take assistance for food, even though they probably could have used it, but they were very willing to take assistance for childcare. So sometimes it involves asking students what it is that they need. So we can create a pathway, and we can reduce the cost of textbooks. We can have the best enrollment plans ever, and we should do all of those things, but we still have to figure out a way to meet students' basic needs in order for our success, retention, and completion to continue to rise. Thank you.
I have a question
Yes.
right here.
Yes.
Okay.
That light went off.
And this is probably due to my lack of knowledge. Students that are head of household and they are hungry. You said there was a lot of food insecurity. Do those individuals not qualify for food stamps and other governmental programs to solve that particular issue? I can understand why a dependent child may not qualify.
They do. Well, actually, the report also says that it's not that students aren't, they're actually getting help with, they're receiving financial aid. Most of them are working, which is why they're going to school part-time. They may be entitled to some community services as well. Sometimes they don't know of all the community and services that they're entitled to. But the other thing is that the point is that a lot of them, they're working really, really hard, and they're still falling short. They're still not able to make ends meet.
Dr. Smith,
Yes.
as someone who practices in this area, I can tell you that a lot of college students may very well be eligible for food stamps. We now call it SNAP. But the eligibility requirements and documenting eligibility can be quite intrusive. So some people choose not to avail themselves of that assistance because it's so intrusive or because of the burden of recertification periodically.
Okay.
So it's really not a simple process.
Okay. For some reason, I thought it was pretty simple, so thank you for that. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, good report. Thank you for the report. Do we have any report from board members regarding meetings or conferences that they attended over the last month, campus visits, community activities? Any board members? Well, I'd like to report on a couple. And this may or may not be all-inclusive, but I had a great opportunity to participate in the scholarship activities that the foundation put on at North Harris and also at Tomball in the last week or so. And I enjoy seeing students with gleam in their eyes, and I enjoy seeing them being recognized for a job well done, because we typically spend a lot of time with folks on the other end of the academic spectrum. So I enjoy doing those type of activities. Both presidents made me make a speech, and I was unprepared, but I enjoy making speeches anyway. So, thank those two presidents. I also had an opportunity to participate at UP with the University of Houston downtown signing another agreement with Lone Star to give our students more educational pathways to success. And I hope we continue those efforts. That activity was well attended. Today, I had the opportunity to speak at the Acres Homes Chamber of Commerce meeting, and I thought the audience was going to get kind of hostile on what I talked about, but they didn't. And I talked about all of the great things that I learned about Lone Star and the contributions they are making, to our community. And all of them echoed the same thing. I also mentioned Quentin. I mentioned you and the activities that you are involved with or have been involved with, because the educational success of our African American males has rooms for improvement. And when I showed the numbers on our African American males, the population at that particular meeting was completely surprised, like they'd never heard it before. So at least today, we have commitment from that community to try to make a difference by providing certain mentorships and et cetera, and also spreading the word about the services that Lone Star provides that unfortunately a lot of those individuals don't know about. Ken was there, and I want to thank him because I needed someone to operate a computer, while I spoke, and he did a great job at that, and thanks, Ken, for showing up in support. We have the best folks at Lone Star, and I like giving praise to people. I told Helen about a week ago kind of a general outline of what I wanted, and I don't know whether she did it or someone on her staff, but whoever who did that provided me with all of the background that I needed to make a speech and not be stumped by any questions that came from the audience. So thank you for a job well done, and I'm pro Lone Star. Keep up the good work. Okay. All right. Dr. Head, you have another introduction you want to make?
Since you mentioned Dr. Wright, I want to introduce to the board Dr. Quentin Wright. If you would stand up so they know who you are. For reasons that escape me, he's agreed to be the special assistant to the chancellor, which means he's whatever he's working now.
Have you signed anything?
So he will come to Leanne Nutt was not very happy, but Quentin used to work at Dallas, and we'll reintroduce him later. But he is currently the VP of instruction over at Tomball, and Quentin's done a great job. So you'll be seeing more of him. So thanks, Quentin.
Great. Okay. Citizen participation. Helen, do we have any? Okay.
Honorable Board, Chairman,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chancellor. My name is Isidro Garza. I'm here representing LULAC, the League of United Latin American Citizens, and also Cesar E. Chavez Legacy and Educational Foundation, of which I'm a board member. To echo Dr. Throwbridge, I'm here because there was an outreach started with Massey Villarreal, and then through Mario Castillo, Chancellor, Vice Chancellor. And when I met with him, and he told me about the vision that Chancellor, that you have for this college, I was really excited, and I wanted to respond accordingly. One, that the overture came from you, not us, and it was very well received. That doesn't happen very often. And I am the co-chair at the state level for the League of United Latin American Citizens on education. And I testify most of the time in Austin on many issues. Yesterday I testified on the top 10%, which was discussed, and it's got two sides to that argument, but I think the right thing will be done at the end of the session. I also testified along with Jacob Ferrari, who is the new director for the Texas Association for Community Colleges. And why do I do this? How the community colleges do will determine what our state is going to do. If we're successful at the community college level, the state is going to do very well. If we don't, the state has problems in the future. I say that because if you go anywhere and you look at the demographics, in the demographics reflect identically the population in community colleges, in all 50 community colleges in the state. For the Hispanics, 73% of all Hispanics that go to higher education go to a community college. 44% of those that are in community colleges are Hispanic. That's very important to me. I'm a graduate from Texas A&M, a mechanical engineer, class of 73, and I competed with John Sharp because John Sharp wants money for the flagship schools. But there, I'm talking about flagship schools still have a long ways to go. At my alma mater, only 20% are Hispanic. And it came from 9% when I started working on the issue around 2000. So again, I repeat, I am really honored to be before you. And I would like to just announce that on the 13th of this month, the Lone Star College is going to host a video teleconference of all the doctors. We have 18 doctors throughout the state of Texas, Hispanic, that are rewriting the Mexican-American textbook. And it's going to be hosted here. I want to thank him and Ms. Laura, who has been phenomenal in helping us organize this. And this group is it's a mutual admiration society. I am so blessed and proud to be in this type of environment. Who wouldn't want to be? Usually you see a lot of folks not really. Yes. Do I have the whole thing or not?
You have about
Okay, sure.
a minute,
Thank,
1
thank,
minute, yeah.
thank you. Okay, I'm sorry. I just want to say that we're here any way that we can help Lone Star College. I am a lifelong member of LULAC since 1974. Anything that we can do to continue and add to your efforts, each one of your efforts in making Lone Star and the future of Texas what it should be, what it deserves to be, something very positive, something that we look forward in some place where we actually set the guideline for the rest of the country. Thank you so much for this opportunity, and Vice Chancellor Castillo, thank you for the invite.
And we'd like to thank you for your support and continue to help us do well.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Good evening. I am John Bergdorf, representing the American Federation of Teachers. Tonight I'm going to talk about a bill before the Texas legislature and its implications to Lone Star College and to the AFT in particular. AFT Lone Star College has been serving its members for over 30 years. We have helped assist many employees with issues at work so that they can serve our students more successfully. We have also worked with successive administrations on policies and procedures to help Lone Star College to be the best it can be. For the last decade or so, the college administration has very graciously assisted our union by allowing our members to have their dues deducted from their paychecks. We are very grateful for this arrangement that we have enjoyed. Not only has this been a favor, the Texas Government Code authorizes school districts, including community colleges, to deduct dues for eligible organizations, including unions. Senate Bill 13, currently under debate in the legislature, would take away the right of dues deductions for union members in public service. We in the AFT believe that employees should have the right to choose the purposes for which their payroll is deducted. We also believe that this should be a matter of local control rather than state control. Nevertheless, it appears likely that this bill will pass and become law in the fall. In anticipation of this change, we have set up a secure alternative method for our members to pay their dues, and we are helping our members to switch. Our plan was to communicate systematically with our members to make sure they're comfortable with the changes and to have all members converted over by the end of the summer when Senate Bill 13 would likely take in effect if it passes. I, in particular, had been in close communication with the payroll department here at Lone Star, and we had worked out a system that would be simple and mutually beneficial. Therefore, we were surprised when an email was sent out to our members that payroll deduction would be cut off for all AFT dues on May the 1st. The email further stated that this was by our request. Having never made such a request, we assumed that there had been a misunderstanding, and we worked to try to resolve it. Unfortunately, the college has declined to reverse this decision. All of our members are going to be moved off of payroll deduction anyway, but the quick deadline will make it more of a challenge for them. We don't see what the purpose of this decision is. Furthermore, our attorneys have been in contact with the college's Office of General Counsel to explain that Texas law does not permit the college to stop payroll deduction without employees' approval. We have left you a written letter outlining in greater detail all the relevant passages of the Texas Government Code, along with documentation of communication the AFT has had with the college for you to review at your convenience. Our request to the board is that you take a look at this carefully, consult with your own board counsel, and to keep the payroll deduction in place for AFT members until possible changes in the law indicate otherwise. On our part, we'll continue to work on moving our employees over to an alternative method so that we are ready in case this law takes effect. Again, we are grateful for the support the college has given us over this last decade, and we look forward to continue working with all of you in every way possible. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Okay. Anybody? Any others? Okay, go ahead. And And they understand they have 5 minutes. Yeah, okay.
Chancellor Head, Chair Smith, and Board of Trustees, good afternoon, and thank you for allowing us to speak here tonight. My name is Edgar Flores, and I am the president of the Sociology Club at Lone Star Sci-Fair, but more importantly, I am a student. We are here today representing a large number of students who feel that our administration has forgotten about us. We feel that our voice and opinions are no longer being taken into consideration, and we feel that our administration is more ready to fight against us than with us. Decisions that directly affect us as students are being decided behind closed doors with absolutely no student voice, and we want to change. Our student body is on the verge of public demonstration just to show how unhappy we are. We stand here before you because some of these decisions have affected two of the most beloved members in our community and in our campus. And we say members because we don't see them simply as faculty or staff. We see them more as friends and mentors. I cannot tell you the countless times that Tashima Jones was readily available to help with anything I needed in student life. Thanks to Ms. Jones, last semester we were able to fully stock our food pantry and provide aid to any student who suffered from food insecurity. Kelly Vorish is an exceptional educator, and I have never met a teacher who has the ability to engage students as she does every single day. She pushes them towards success. And me personally, 2 years ago, I returned to school after I flunked out of a university. And now I'm going to be presenting at a national conference this summer.
Tashima Jones always tells me that education comes first and class should always have top priority. But with the way things are going on, we as students cannot protect our faculty nor staff. We, with the leadership of Kelly Vorish and Tashima Jones, are present in front of you today. How can one be engaged and motivated to endure class when the people that we signed up for are being prosecuted for failure to be mundane? Tashima Jones and Kelly Vorish have been critical of my growth as a student, but better yet, my growth as a person. When I first came to Lone Star, I was a commuter. I came to school, then left. But I'm going to transfer as an officer for Student Government Association, Black Student Union, and Student Programming Board under the leadership of Kelly Vorish and Tashima Jones. We are not here to dismantle anything or cause an uproar. We are here to POP, an acronym that means protect our professors. Chancellor Steve had mentioned student success earlier during the meeting, and to the majority of students who know Kelly Vorish and Tashima Jones, they know that they are the living embodiment of student success. Thank you.
I recall my first moments at the campus. My main focus was to get in and to get out. I wasn't involved in student activities, clubs, or events. It wasn't until I met a professor who challenged me and stirred new ideas about my campus and the communities I'm a part of. A professor who saw my potential as a student and is helping me achieve my goals today. That professor is Kelly Vorish, and she is here today, and her current contract status is now renewal, and it will be a detriment to Lone Star College should she be let go. Just to let you know, you should know that this year alone, with the leadership of Professor Vorish, we have gathered 3,000 books for a literacy festival, which will happen April 22nd. This event will allow families with children and teens to come to our campus and take books home. To some of us, the best moments we had as children was when our parents read to us, and we want to build those moments. Also, with the guidance of Professor Vorish, we have collected $975 out of a $1,500 goal for a scholarship, which will help a student attend Lone Star College who has financial needs. After all, education is known to be the great equalizer, and no one should be denied that experience. Not to mention the countless volunteer opportunities and the impact we have had on various communities. Professor Vorish has made it clear to me and our students that as humans, we have the power to evoke change and to change the world for the betterment.
As president of the Student Government Association, representative of the student body, I firmly believe that Lone Star College Affair will not be any better without them. They have become essential to our community. The student body will like for you to reinstate Tashima Jones as program manager of Student Life and renew Kelly Vorsh's contract. We will not stop until our voices are heard, and that's the reason we are here today. Thank you for taking your time to listen to us.
All right, thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
You know, I I started my day today at the funeral of my good friend, Chief Deputy Clint Greenwood, who literally gave his life in service to his community when he was murdered just a few days ago, getting out of his car at the constable's office in Precinct 3 in Harris County. I've known Clint since law school. He was a prosecutor in Harris County and then became a defense attorney and then went back to law enforcement. Clint gave his entire life public service. I spent 2/3 of my day at that funeral. I spent the other third of my day getting ready to come out here and work on begging this board to give my client a few minutes of your time. This is not a process by which it's not a process, sir. This system that you have put up where you leave employees to come out here and beg with tears coming down their face for a few minutes of your time to hear their case is not due process. It's not a system that you have set up that gives them a meaningful opportunity for them to have any time by which their side of this system, of their case is ever heard by anyone who is going to give them any time to reverse this. You see what this system does, and I don't doubt your words when you said Steve Head is a fair man, that Mario is a fair man. I know them. I like them. But the system sets up for 5 people to hear only the administration side, to be ingrained in that position before they ever hear from the employee. They've already decided the issue before they ever hear from the employee's side. And then the board has passed policies to ensure that you never have to hear from the employee. You passed policies to ensure that you never have to do anything. The public service, when you took that oath, when you took an oath to do the job to protect these employees, you then passed policies to ensure that you never have to do it. And so I spent my day at my friend's funeral, and then I came out here. And I want to give at least Chancellor Head some credit, because he gives them a meeting. He sits with them. He nods. He listens. He asks questions. And for a few fleeting moments, the employee feels that somebody cares, that somebody listened, that somebody believed in what they had to say. Now, that only lasts until they get the letter a few days later, and their hopes and their dreams are again shattered because nobody listened. And then they come here, and they beg in a public hearing for anyone to listen. Ladies and gentlemen, it is no slight on your administration to set up a policy that gives someone of independence, an independent hearing examiner, not of the administration, someone outside, an independent lawyer, if you will, to come in and hear evidence. That's not a kangaroo court, sir. The system you have is not, it doesn't do justice to a kangaroo court because we can't get to the court. Give us an independent hearing officer. Give us someone of independence as a check and a balance on what the administration has done. Let us have someone of independent means to listen, to render a ruling. Then, I don't care if you don't do it. Then someone of independence has evaluated the evidence. Someone of independence has looked at it. It's no slight on due process. It is due process to give them a real hearing. Because right now, as it stands, I think that you should change the motto of the Lone Star College system to Lone Star College, the place where due process went to die.
Thank you, sir. Oh, just a minute. go ahead.
I can start now?
Oh, yes, go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Tashima Jones, and on December 11th, 2012, I had the opportunity to start my journey with Lone Star College Sci-Fair. Summer 2013, I applied and was accepted into a doctorate program to further my education and build upon my career. Over the years, I have been able to complete all coursework while working an average of 55+ hours at Lone Star College Sci-Fair per week, not to mention earning several awards with the college, including Staff Excellence Award in 2015 and Advisor of the Year. I've worked hard through those years to be able to advance in my career, but my career was cut short by my supervisor, the Vice President of Student Services at Lone Star College Sci-Fair on December 9th, 2016. Prior to December 9th, I sought help from trusted individuals at Sci-Fair's campus on several issues I was experiencing with my supervisor. For example, I had been receiving a stipend for 2 years as lead advisor for Student Government Association. My supervisor cut off my stipend, but instead he paid the male co-advisor his stipend. My supervisor explained his decision by stating, and I quote, "Well, he deserves it, and the college can get around this rule that only faculty are paid stipends because he teaches one class." In actuality, this person was a full-time grant-funded advisor. Also, my supervisor was removing funds from the student life budget without my knowledge, and as program manager, it made it very difficult for me to oversee and manage that budget. He was transferring over $170,000 from the student life budget to Division II, stating it was at the request of the chancellor. However, that transfer was not known by student life budget, was not known by me, or it was not known or approved by the Student Advisory Fee Committee, which is required by the Texas Education Code. Additionally, I had a concern that our Lone Star College Sci-Fair's president had no knowledge of the budget. Although my supervisor had been stating publicly to myself and in the Student Government Club Council among some 55 clubs and their members that Lone Star College Sci-Fair's president in fact had the budget, and it was still pending since August 31st, and today it's still not been approved. I filed the first step in a grievance, namely request for an informal dispute resolution meeting on November 4th, and brought several of these claims to the table with my supervisor. Shortly thereafter, on December 9th, my supervisor told me that I was being terminated immediately. He claimed that some 87 days prior to that my termination was alleged by a student that I called a professor a derogatory term. Although the policy manual states that a thorough investigation must be completed by the Office of Human Resources, my supervisor stated that he himself alone had completed a full investigation. And for his evidence, he considered a letter he had received from the professor in question who says she did not hear the comment. However, he failed to talk to the key Lone Star College Sci-Fair staff members who were present with me at the time. They've also provided written statements stating that they were present with me and they have never heard me call anyone a derogatory term. I feel as though I have lived up to and excelled at Lone Star College's cultural beliefs. All of my students matter to me, which is why I have mentored several students. I have inspired excellence on campus. I have acted intentionally, and I thought we were better together. But the fear of losing my job became a reality, and there was absolutely no trust. I felt and still feel I don't have a leg to stand on in this situation. My supervisor, the Vice President of Student Services, has intimidated me in several meetings, stating he is best friends with the chancellor and several board members, including the chair. I would hope that you can see past your friendships and that you all may have and do the right thing and reinstate my position as Student Life Program Manager. Without this job, I have lost my insurance, would have paid for my 15-year-old daughter's medical expenses after undergoing a double lumpectomy only 10 days after being terminated. My supervisor was aware of this surgery. Without this job, I have lost my right to conduct my study for my doctorate program because Lone Star College Sci-Fair's president denied me meeting with 10 students to interview them strictly for my dissertation, and I offered to do it off campus. Not only did this hinder me from graduating on time, I have traveled 8 hours just alone this week to another institution. Without this job, I have lost my livelihood after purchasing a new home for my daughters and security this job has provided for me as a single mom. Lastly, my supervisor did not do the right thing. Lone Star College's Cy-Fair president did not do the right thing. As she has stated before, she sleeps well at night, thinking about all the decisions that she has made, and she's proud of them. Finally, unfortunately, the chancellor did not do the right thing by not reinstating my job and giving me my livelihood back, which I did not deserve to lose in the first place. I am asking you to please hear me today, to listen to me, listen to my heart, that this is not right, and I would like to be immediately reinstated to my full-time position. You have to know that I will not stop fighting for my position, I will not stop fighting for my students, and I will not stop fighting for what is right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Chairman, Trustees, and Chancellor Steve Head. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Danny Ramirez, and I'm an attorney who represents the college in relation to the grievance and appeal that Ms. Jones filed. And we've heard a lot of discussion about a lot of different issues today, but I think it's important to focus upon what the appeal was about today and present it to the board. And that specifically was an allegation by Ms. Jones and her attorney that there is a procedural irregularity, as previously discussed. And it's important to know what that means. What does that mean? At least in this case, it meant that she alleged the college's grievance policies were not sufficient enough as her as a grievant to provide her an avenue in which to present her grievances to decision makers to the college in order to resolve a grievance, her grievance. In addition, she alleged that the college did not allow her the proper representation, although she had 2 attorneys and an AFT representative at one of her hearings. That's what her appeal was about. So in relation to those situations, I think it's important to understand that the college made the right decision, and in order to understand why, I think it's important to talk briefly about the facts and the grievance that was discussed, because the facts will speak for themselves. The grievance started back in November 2016 when she had some supervisor interaction issues that she discussed. She had that informal grievance meeting with her supervisor, which lasted about an hour, and put her issues on the table. At that meeting was AFT Representative Dr. Burdoff, who represented her at that hearing, and at the end of the day, she disagreed and felt that her issues were not resolved. So she took the next step and filed a formal grievance with the president of Cy-Fair College, Dr. Kishvala, and had a separate meeting over an hour long where she had another attorney represent her during that hearing. She had a full hour and 15 minutes to discuss every issue as part of her grievance. Dr. Kishvala listened, asked questions, reviewed documents in relation to what she presented, and ultimately concluded that she did not agree with her grievance. Thereafter, Ms. Jones did file an appeal with the chancellor, Dr. Head, in relation to what she thought was the next step, and at the same time had another meeting one-on-one with the chancellor, which was about an hour and 15 minutes as well, where she was represented by Mr. Tritico, in which he prepared her, represented her, and helped her along that process. At the conclusion of that appeal with Dr. Head, he did affirm the underlying decision and ultimately decided that based on the facts that she presented, the relief she sought was not proper. So ultimately, their allegation of impropriety is not correct. She had an opportunity to meet with 3 different decision makers of the college for at least 1 hour each time in order to present her case with either an attorney or an AFT representative. And so in relation to that process, I think it's important to note the allegation of an impropriety is different from somebody who didn't receive the relief that they sought. And simply because they didn't receive the relief that they sought doesn't mean the process was unfair. Because the policies that applied to the college applied to Ms. Tashima Jones equally, and it was an equal playing field. You also heard comments about a termination, and it is true, Ms. Jones was terminated. But you also should know that she has a second grievance, separate from what was heard today in her appeal, in which she's alleging wrongful termination, and she's grieving that situation. And the college takes that very seriously. It's not a light issue. And I will say it's premature to bring those issues because that grievance is pending. It has not been exhausted. And the college, if it identifies issues that are wrong, will take the necessary steps in order to take appropriate action. So in conclusion, I want to say that as the college's representative and attorney, there was no impropriety in relation to the grievance process. There was a three-step process where she did present to 3 decision makers with her attorneys or AFT representative, and the process was fair and equitable. And she had every right to bring any representative that she wanted to at those hearings, and she did. Thank you very much.
Could you repeat what this appeal was about? Again, make sure everybody understand.
Yes, the appeal that was heard by the board today specifically focused on a procedural irregularity. And her specific claim here was twofold. Number one, she stated the underlying policies of the college were not sufficient enough for her to proceed as a grievant, where she never had the chance to meet with the decision maker to rule upon issues that she was grieving upon, number one. And Chairman, number two, she alleged, or her attorney alleged, number two, that she never had the right to true representation, meaning in her version, she wanted her attorneys to have more of an active role during the process, but they attended every hearing. They helped her prepare, and they helped the grievance process along. So those are the 2 issues that she was appealing.
And there's other issues to follow.
Correct. She has a separate grievance, number 2, which is pending, and we'll go to formal grievance in about 20 days from today.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question for Dr. Head on the number of appeals, that he's had and the number of decisions he's had. Is that a fair question?
Yeah, so since we enacted this policy, 4 appeals have come to me. 2, I ruled in favor of the employee. In other words, the decision was overturned, and 2, I upheld the decision, so
Okay.
2 and 2.
Yeah, all right, well, I appreciate that. I wanted to, because I heard something just the opposite, so thank you for that data. Board members, any questions on anything?
I guess I'm confused. Are policies more important than people?
How so?
I'm just saying, policies, people were not made for policies. Policies were made for people, right?
Sure. But
Okay. It's just, I can go with that.
Okay, yeah. Well, we probably ought to move on, so, okay, thank you. Let me see, where are we now? Do we have any others, Alan? Okay, well, thank you very much. Okay, at this point, we will move to our financial report.
No.
Oh, I'm sorry, did I miss it? Oh, my God, okay, thank you. We're at the consent agenda, and we have 13 items on the consent agenda, and items 3, 9, 11, and 13 has been pulled for separate action. Do we have any? And 1. And we also have 1. So that's 1, 3, 9, 11, and 13 that would be considered separately. So at this point in time, items 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10, and 12 will be taken as a group. Can I have a motion to?
So moved.
Huh? And 8. Okay. Let me read them again to make sure we're accurate for the records. 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, and 12. Okay. Right. We have a motion, and it's been moved. All of those in favor, vote by the usual sign.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passed. Okay, on item number 1, Cal, you pulled that one.
Mario, or Rand, both of y'all are more than invited to come up. You never get called on, Rand. Left out. No, during the last board meeting, we saw a long list of procedures that were going to sort of bring us into compliance with regard to campus carry.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
We passed this. Are those automatically enacted?
Yes, sir. So they're actually, the plan is if the way we always do things is the board passes the policy and then the chancellor's procedures get adopted usually very quickly thereafter. In fact, with Campus Carry, they're already written. We've already collected feedback, and they're ready to sign tonight if the chancellor's ready.
And then 90 days after that, the board reviews those procedures?
Actually, we'll be moving faster than that. We'll be back in May at the next board meeting, and we've already submitted the agenda item for next May, and that is where you will be able to see them. They'll be on the May agenda, essentially, and the reason it's a little tricky.
But this brings us in compliance with the law.
Yes, sir.
Those procedures are enacted to, I guess, promulgate this policy that we're asking.
Yes, sir. So Senate Bill.
Those sets of rules that were brought in, the board will see in May.
Right, and so the way Senate Bill 11 is written is a little different than the way we usually process our procedures. So usually the board passes the policy and then the chancellor passes the procedures, and the board never sees the procedures. But Senate Bill 11 has a special provision in it that actually requires the chancellor, the executive, to pass those procedures, and then the board, by a 2/3 vote, can sort of overrule and amend them. And so we're going to knock that out, try to knock it out in May. And so in May, the procedures will come back, which should be effective as early as tonight or tomorrow if you pass this policy. And then if you have any changes, 2/3 of you can vote to change those procedures.
And then that way, after May, whether up or down, regardless of what happens to the procedures, everybody knows the rules starting the school year in fall.
Right, because the big goal is we have material, and Rand can talk about this a little bit. Rand, what are the materials that we have to print that sort of we have to get this done soon?
Well, we're currently working on all of our training and educational materials that I spoke about at the last board meeting. We're working on our script and our video that will be used with student orientation, as well as other written materials that will just explain even in more detail. In fact, today I read some responses that our Office of General Counsel has.
Plus, Rand has been visiting, the chief and Rand's been visiting with each of the locations, the colleges, and walking around. Are you walking around with the president?
Yes, sir. As of this week, we have completed, with the help of our presidents, I had prepared a Excel spreadsheet, and I had sent that to the presidents and asked for them and their teams to go through their college campus and all of their centers and identify areas that they feel, based upon our recommendations, met the test of being a gun-free exclusionary zone. They all submitted those right before spring break. We've now completed the Tomball visit, the North Harris visit, and the Montgomery visit. And so I have to tell you, we were very pleasantly surprised with most of it. It was very uniform across the 3 colleges. At this particular point in time, we've actually only had 7 faculty who have requested their office to be gun-free, so 7 out of those 3 colleges. So we're moving right along.
My question then, and tell me if I'm out of line, because it has to do with the board agenda item that will appear in May, which is, are each of the procedures going to be itemized, or will they be put on the agenda as a omnibus, all in or all out?
As of right now, it's one omnibus.
Could
We can do whatever you'd like, sir.
I would prefer that.
Okay, so just so we want one board agenda item, but we want it itemized by number, maybe? Or do you want like 15 board agenda items?
Up another time.
Okay.
We'll get back with you.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
It doesn't make any difference to us how they come in, or how you want to see them, right?
Right, we just need to know to make sure we do that.
Sure. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we're going to approve each one of these as we talk about them. So can we have a motion on item 1?
So move.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposes? Passed. Okay, item 3, Dr. Head.
So we've got really the 3, 9, 11, and 3, 9, and 11. I'd like for Jennifer and Mario to come up. These are about the way we're handling some of our contracts right now and some of the issues. I just want you to see, these are some of our new procedures that we're going through. I wanted them to explain exactly what's happening.
Okay.
Part of it's a business issue, part of it's a legal issue.
All right, so I'm here to talk about sort of the procedure, and I think Jennifer's going to knock out the finances. So a few months ago, I personally rewrote all of our procurement procedures for architects and contractors. And so what we did is we essentially now have a standing committee that we call the SRC, so that is our submission review committee. It is made up of 7 project directors. Each college has a project director, and so now it's fixed, and those are the folks that know the most about construction and have these sort of architecture and building backgrounds, so that they do the recording of the scores, and that's 65% of the total bid evaluation. Then it goes to a separate set of 5 people who are the interview review committee, and those are also set in terms of what the position are. So one of the people, for example, is Rand, who is the CEO of System Office at University Park. Another person is the Senior Assistant General Counsel, who is Amy Benya. And then it's the president or vice chancellor who's over whatever kind of building it is. So, for example, here at Tomball, it is Dr. Nutt, and then Dr. Nutt picked a vice president. Since this doesn't fall neatly into our instruction or services product, then they have a score. Oh, and then the 5th person is the executive director of construction. So the 5 of them score, and their score is 35%. And so the 65 and the 35% is what yields essentially the winner of the bid. And so it's very transparent. The individual scoring members of the interview review committee don't share scores. They don't talk about scores. In fact, the procedures specifically talk about how kind of everyone has to sit in a corner, and we collect their scores individually on USBs that are password protected by them, and no one has access to those passwords so that no one can be accused of tampering with those bids. And so that's essentially we've gone through one whole iteration of that with action item 3. And this is the first board agenda item that we've gone through that whole process with.
So that's the background, and then the board agenda item is, go ahead.
Yes, on the board agenda item, and a piece that we have added to this one too is the last line of the Chancellor's recommendation about how we proceed with negotiations. It does say that according to the scoring process that Mario just laid out, we would begin negotiations, because that's what this item does, is authorize us to negotiate and execute a contract. We could begin negotiations with the highest scoring firm, but that is negotiation. So if at some point, for some reason, we do our best efforts, if we are unable to come to an agreement that everyone's willing to sign, we are then authorized by this item to then move on to the next highest scoring proposal and so forth, as long as their score is above a 70. So there is a floor there. But that should really strengthen our negotiating position too, because previously without this, we could only negotiate with the top score, and if for some reason we can't reach an agreement, we'd have to come back here to the board, and that time, a lot of times just puts us in a difficult spot if we're trying to get a project executed.
So in our view, this is just a common sense way to handle this, so we can move on with some of these projects. So it's the top, as long as they're above 70, if for whatever reason, whatever vendor doesn't want to, if we think the price is excessive or there's conditions, we want to move on to the next one. So.
Let me see if I can summarize this. If the scores are above 70, and for some reason the top individual can't fulfill the contract for whatever reason,
if we can't
then go to the next person and award the contract rather than going through the bidding process again.
We wouldn't have to go through the bidding process again, but without this line, to begin negotiations with the next highest scoring firm, we'd have to come back to the board to get authorization to do that. And we have seen instances where that time delay would mean that we'd miss critical timelines for a project.
Okay.
And from the contract negotiation standpoint, what would happen a lot of times as, the general counsel here, we would contact these contractors or these architects, and they would say, well, you kind of have to take the deal that we're offering, or else you're going to have to go back to the board, and it's going to delay your project for, however long it takes to get it back. So now we can say, no, you're not the only show in town, and we can protect taxpayer money a little bit stronger.
So this particular one, to be clear, this particular contract is for professional services, not for construction.
Well, right. It's well, this one in particular is for engineering services to build out, because we're building out some curbs, right? I guess I'll let her take over here. We're building out, I believe, the frontage to
This is construction.
Right. So it is construction.
Oh, it is construction.
Yes, sir.
It is.
It's the widening of 249.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions, board members?
But we are going to apply it, by the way, to all professional services. We just started with architects and contractors, but we're going to expand it to everyone.
One quick question.
Yes, go ahead.
What defines not being able to work out, authorize?
So as a contract negotiator, I can tell you that a lot of things can go wrong. Sometimes, for example, I'll give you an example. One thing that really happened is when the company bid, they thought the project was going to be, and I'm just throwing numbers out, $15 million. So through some value engineering, retrofitting, that kind of thing, we figure out it's only a $5 million project. Well, at that point, then the contractor might say, when I signed up for this, I thought it was a $15 million pot, but now it's only $5 million. No thanks. And so we've been in that situation before, where then we have to come back to the board, and it sets back the build-outs of the building. So now we can go to
the
the
other side of that is we may have 2.9, and somebody comes back and says, I can do that for 3.4, and we know we can find somebody for 2.9.
Right. So it's a lot of things. I mean, every contract is kind of unique, but this gives us leverage to sort of push back on behalf of taxpayers.
But you would operate under certain rules or informal guidelines that say, well, we're not going to just make a decision for no reason to move on to the next one.
Right. I mean,
it's got to be.
Well, there's no informal guidelines. Either we could settle this for the not to exceed the maximum that we have that you've approved, or we move on to the next person. Yeah. So, our company. Yeah.
Any other questions? Need a motion, board members. Move.
Second.
Moved and second that we adopt item 3. All of those in favor, vote by the usual sign of aye.
Aye.
Any opposers? Okay, it's moved to number 9.
So number 9 is about the tenant leases, and we've had some of these discussions before, but I wanted Jennifer and Mario to kind of go through what you're seeing here.
Okay, so I guess I'll start with the procedure again. So one of the things that I really like to highlight to my staff and sort of the divisions that I operate is that we're always going to err on the side of transparency. And so this is an example of that. All of these leases have already been executed. Those tenants are in there. We've done these tenant improvements, but I'm on the side that I would like to disclose to taxpayers and to the board and to the public in general sort of what those leases look like, who has them, what's the square footage, how much money are we generating from them, so that you at least know. And I can tell you that moving forward, any tenant improvement that goes above $100,000, you will have to see a board agenda item through. And Jennifer and I are both committed to making sure that we now go tenant improvement by tenant improvement before we expend taxpayer money.
And so for what you see here too, if I could clarify, at the board retreat, we did a presentation on specifically the private tenant leases at University Park Buildings 9 and 10. The same principles that I discussed there, we are expanding to all of our private leases. So this item here is everything private leases in those 2 buildings, in some of our other facilities, as well as educational tenant leases.
Okay, thank you. Any questions?
It's worth noting on the second page, in a little tiny 2 or 1 font, I can't decide, it is over a 10-year period, we're generating about $64 million off of our tenant leases. That's not the profit. We'll come back with you. But so this is a big enterprise, and we're trying to get our policies and our procedures right so that it's very clear and we follow all of the guidelines, and you know exactly what's going on. So.
Questions? Motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second. It's been moved and properly second that we adopt action item number 9. All those in favor, vote by the usual sign.
Aye.
Opposes? Motion passes. Number 11.
Number 11 is about the way we handle contracts, and I think everybody has a sheet in front of you, but who's talking about this? You? Okay. You? Okay.
Yes, on this item, just wanted to discuss job order contracts. That's what the type that this item is. And so I just wanted to go through my own speaking points. I thought I'd put this out there for everybody. Just what is a job order contract? It's because it tends to be confused. Some people think it's a type of company. Some people think it's a procurement method. It's neither one of those. It is a contracting method. And really the purpose is just to allow us quickly to be able to take care of recurring items where we might not know ahead of time the quantities, the type, the scope, type of work. So the way that it's a master service agreement typically works is there will be a list as part of the contract of different types of services and the costs, the prices of those services. So in this case, This item is to purchase general contracting services. So for anything that's less than 100,000, if we, during the course of the year, if some walls get damaged and we need to be able to go paint them, if some carpet gets damaged and we need to go pull up the carpet, we don't necessarily want to have to go through what can be a lengthy RFP or bid process. This allows us to bring these vendors pre-evaluated and have this pool of vendors approved by the board under this master service agreement. So when we need to get small sort of renovation construction works done, we can then just, from the pricing schedule that's already agreed upon in the contract, engage those firms to conduct the work.
We use the jock orders to, that's the way we're reaching out to small businesses. We have a lot of small jobs around. You see the big bond contracts in the big buildings, but whether it be painting or do we do landscaping, do we do all of those, or just primarily construction?
This one specifically is for general contracting services, so it's more like the painting, the carpet, that type of work.
How do you limit or manage the sole, what is it called, selection contracts? When you get out of the list, when you're able to pick somebody that's not on the list?
Generally, the purpose of this is to select someone from these vendor lists. And actually, in this particular item, and even in item number 10 that was prior to this as well, we did already have a list that was approved a few years ago, and we had found some of the vendors were no longer in business, and we had just found the pool had gotten too small. So what we are doing actually in these two items is now adding vendors to that existing pool.
What address the concern that none of them might be there? Or, because most organizations have policies to allow for that situation where nobody on the list can do the job.
If no one on the list can do the job, then we would have to go through alternative procurement method rules to...
We might have to go out and get 3 bids or come back to you, depending on how much money it is, but so that we're trying to pre-approve people. Most of the jobs that we have on this there needs to be quick turnaround. That's, so that's why we pre-approve people. This is this is a widely used process by the state.
No, well, we do have sole source policies, but that's not what this is. This is essentially, can we go to this pre-approved list of people and give them work, but they have to be on the pre-approved list. Now, if we want to do sole source, then there's guidelines for that we do have in our policy, and we do enforce that. So, for example, if something is sole source like copyright, you have to go to that source. If we can also go through a co-op, and those are contracts that have been negotiated by the state. And then, of course, if someone is in a unique position to be a sole source, then we do that. But Jennifer's office and my office works very closely together, and we both kind of have to sign off on that before that happens. So there's a check and balance.
Yeah, I just want to make sure there's a check and balance.
Yes,
so it
sir.
doesn't automatically go to that.
Yes, sir.
You have thresholds, jobs that are under a certain threshold by law. You don't have to go to formal public procurement processes or bidding.
Yes.
What are those thresholds?
Well, so the aggregate amount over a 12-month period, if it's less than 50,000, you can just go get 3 bids. I believe if it's less than 5,000 is when people can just go use their P cards. So there are thresholds, and I can provide you. We also have a 1-page guidelines that everyone can kind of hang up on their
Could you send
office
that to
wall.
me? I'd like
Yes.
to see what the district is.
Yeah, me too.
Any other questions? May I have a motion for action item number 11?
So moved.
Second.
Did we get a second? Yeah. Second. Okay, it's been moved and properly second that we adopt action item 11. All those in favor vote by the usual sign of aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you. Adopted.
I'm not on here.
Thank you. Yeah, that's mine. Okay, action item 13. We are considering action item 13 separately because we have some corrections to the multi-year contract list. There are 47 names in the annual contract list that should be in the multi-year list.
Okay.
This was an administrative error. Rather than reading all of those names, I am signing an attachment to action item 13 that contains those names, and Mario has given all of y'all a copy of those names that will be added. So, Mario, you want to add any additional comment?
No, sir, other than for any member of the public or the faculty senate presidents, if they'd like a copy, I do have 2 copies here that they're welcome to take with them.
Great, that's awesome. So feel free to request a copy if you would like to have one.
Are there any faculty members here that are on this list?
Yes. Most of those are faculty members, right?
All
Or
of this is faculty. I don't know.
Oh, here in the room. Here in the room, is that your question?
Yes, we can let them know ahead of time.
Yeah, I mean, the reason we're doing this instead of waiting for another month is so that they don't lose any sleep. So that's, we're making the amendment.
Yes, sir.
I don't think anybody, is anybody here that's impacted? None of you were impacted by that? Okay. So they would be notified by who's making, I guess that's the other question is, so who is, they're going to be notified that they're.
The college presidents are notifying them.
Okay. So college presidents, you're going to notify the people that, okay.
Because these lists actually came from them, so they should know exactly who is on these 47-person list.
Yeah. All right.
Does that answer your question? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions? Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Second, okay, it's been moved and properly second that we adopt item 13 as amended. All those in favor, vote by the usual sign of aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed. Now we can go to the financial report. And again, congratulations on that selection. We're proud of you.
Thank you. Yes, so presented here are the financial statements through February 28th. That's the 6th month of the fiscal year. If you go to the first chart, these are revenues collected at 79.3% of budget, which is higher than where we were the same time last year, which was 75.3%. Again, this is primarily due to our expectation of about additional $7.6 million in tax revenues, and you're going to see that number again here shortly. Going to the next chart on expenditures on page 2, you can see here too we are at 46.5%. This is slightly higher than last year of 46.2%, but being halfway through the year, we are still below 50%. It's still good to kind of keep the guideline from prior years because there does tend to be sometimes larger amounts of spending towards the end of the year, but we are only marginally above where we were this time last year. Going on to page 3, the statement of revenues and expenditures, we have a change here in what has been presented. In this report, we have added a column. The first column you see is budget. The column next to the right of that is a brand new column. It's called forecasted variance. So prior, you would see the budget as it was adopted, and you would see the third column here, the fiscal year to date actual, but you wouldn't necessarily see where we were expecting now, halfway through the year, to end the full budget year. So for example, the $7.6 million that I keep mentioning every month that we are expecting in additional tax revenues, you couldn't really see that anywhere except for me making that comment up here. Now on this report, you can see that if you look at taxes under revenues and go over to forecasted variance, you can now see where we are forecasting the additional $7.6 million in revenues coming from taxes. So you can see this forecasted variance column, and then towards the bottom, we added this section of long-term cash reserves. So with this forecast, you can now also see where we are currently estimating we will end this fiscal year. So right now, we are estimating that we will end this fiscal year with cash reserves at 15.2%. And we will update these estimates because they are forecasts that will change every month. We will present our most updated forecast with each new financial report.
And in our planning right now, we will go over 16% starting, we'll go over 16 in next year's budget. That's the way we're budgeting right now. We'll be close to 17 probably, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Right. And so that includes...
And that forecast reserve as of 8/31/2017, that's what the reserves is estimated to be. So we finally have that number. Okay, thank you.
Right. So the beginning of this fiscal year, so on September 1st, 2016, our long-term cash reserves was the 42 million.
Yeah.
And then we are forecasting reserves on August 31st, 2017 to be 50.7 million, and that is 15.2% of our budget.
Thank you for doing that.
Sure.
Can I ask a question for clarification? So when we say that Standard & Poor's wants to see us at 16 to 20% reserve, is it this number that we're looking at here?
Yes, the 15.2.
Okay, because that's percentage of expenditures, not percentage of budget.
Yes, that's correct. I should have said percentage of expenditures. Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Second.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Do you have a buildings and grounds?
Yes, the construction and grounds report is included, and I have nothing to add.
Okay, all righty.
Thank you.
There's no other information.
Huh?
It's just for information.
Yeah, well, got you. Okay. Do we have a report from the foundation? Thank you. I didn't see you back there.
Good evening, Dr. Smith, Dr. Head, and trustees. Quick report from the foundation, because I realize I'm one of the things that stands between you and adjournment. So we reported to you in this just a few items that have been donated in kind to the college, and those we report to you either quarterly or a couple times a year. It's just a handful of items, but what I wanted to report to you most importantly is that at this point your foundation has 367 named endowments. We're proud that there are 71 planned endowments that yield 703 scholarships annually. So we're really excited about the progress we've been able to make, continued with your support. I do want to thank Dr. Smith for attending the scholarship receptions, but I do have to tell you they were planned by the campuses, not by the foundation. So the campuses all individually put those on, and we look forward to being at University Parks in the next couple of weeks.
Thank you for correcting me on that. Appreciate it.
Yeah, they did a lot of hard work on it, so I wanted to make sure that we did not take credit for that. And last but certainly not least, I want to make sure that you all know that we can't wait to see you on April 29th at the Star Gala. It's our 26th year. It's a celestial celebration. We've already sold more than 500 seats, on our way to 800. So we're really excited about that. We are bringing back the silent and live auction, the silent auction by popular demand. So I thought I would make sure to note that. So come prepared to buy some Mother's Day or Father's Day or just because gifts. Lots of great things happening, and we look forward to working with you on all the things that we can do for our students and scholarships.
So
Thank
before you leave,
Yes, sir.
Nicole has done a great job with the foundation. And just organizationally, Nicole reports to Amos, but we've done, some of you attend the meetings, but it's, and we're the foundation is with some of the Jakarta money, and then we're matching that. We're putting up $500,000 again next year for Lone Star College Promise. So we're doing a lot of great things. What's the total endowment now? 23, 24 million, that much?
I think we just topped 23 million in the last month's.
Yeah. So we're making really good progress. I'm really pleased. She's a great public relations person. So
Thank you.
So is Amos, but you're in charge of the foundation. So yeah.
But I report to Amos. He
Yeah,
keeps
I got it.
everything going. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Nicole. Great job. Board members, any future agenda items? If not, meeting's adjourned.